I'm going to be covering 10 hacks that you need to do in order to optimize your credit profile and get that 700 plus credit score that you've always been wanting. If you are interested in boosting your credit score, make sure to watch this entire episode of the Credit Concept Podcast, where I'm going to be talking about the 10 hacks that you need to do in order to fully optimize your credit report. Let's go. Welcome everyone. My name is Credit Coach Nicole Scott. Thank you so much for joining the Credit Concept Podcast. I am your host today, and we are going to be talking about 10 hacks that you need to do in order to optimize your credit report and get a 700 plus credit score. Now, a lot of you ask me, how many trade lines do I need? Or how do I get to a 700 credit score? And, unfortunately, there is a lot of gray area in credit, and every credit profile has its very own unique DNA to it. So in today's episode of the Credit Concept Podcast, I am going to be covering the 10 hacks that you need to do to fully optimize your credit profile so that way you can build and get that perfect credit score that you want. Now, of course, there is nothing fast about credit, and it takes time and it takes consistency, because at the end of the day, what your credit report is truly made of is your ability to repay back debt as agreed. And part of that is being able to manage your finances in a proper manner, I guess you can say. Now, when I say proper manner, basically what that means is keeping your credit utilization below 15% as a whole. One thing that people do and they get themselves in a lot of hot water is they get a high limit credit card, and all of a sudden their credit score drops 70, 100 points because they are using too much of their available revolving credit. And unfortunately, credit utilization is 30% of our credit score. So in today's video, we're going to be covering those top 10 hacks that you have to do. They are a must. Believe me, I'm telling you from experience. Not only have I done these things myself, and this is the exact DNA that I give to my clients. So make sure that you have subscribed to my channel on YouTube, Credit Coach Nicole Scott. You can also follow me on Instagram at Credit Coach Nicole Scott or at Credit Coach Pros. I have 2 Instagrams, just in case one happens to go down, because as many of you may know, my Facebook was hacked a little over a year ago, and I had to start all over. So it was a real pain. And, with social media, you just can't truly trust that, your accounts are going to be there. So at the end of the day, my goal is to provide you guys with value. So if you have found value from today's video, I need you to do me a favor, hit that like button, leave me a comment, and make sure that you've subscribed to the channel. Turn your bell notifications on so when I do drop new videos, you will be the first one to get that info, okay? So let's go ahead and get started on the top 10 credit hacks that you must do if you are looking for that 700 plus credit score. Now, these are not in any particular order because they all are important. And like I give you guys the concept for credit, use this concept and apply it to best fit your goals and your situation, because everyone is at a different place with their credit, okay? And my goal is to help you guys guys understand, so that way you don't have to pay anybody for credit. Now, if you do need help and you want more hand holding and you've got a lot of questions and you feel like this is something that is best to get help with, then you can always book a call with me and we can talk about how I can help you. Now, if your credit cards are all maxed out, there's not much that I can do for you except for recommend that either, you produce more income, and sometimes that means getting a second job or having another stream of income to help pay down the debt. And of course, you have to analyze your spending habits, because at this point, we know that you are spending more than you're making. So we have to increase the income and we have to decrease the spending, okay? And I know some people might think, well, obviously that's simple, but sometimes it's hard. It's so easy to get yourself in that downward spiral where you're in credit utilization hell, and it's hard to climb yourself out of that. But what you want to do is just pay off the smallest limit credit cards first. Okay. And then slowly but surely crawl yourself out of that black, dark debt hole. Okay. Because we don't want to hold debt on our personal credit. We want to hold debt on our business credit. And that's why you start multiple businesses, so you can get business credit cards and you put your credit on your business. Okay. Now, if you are interested in starting your business, LLC or corporation, I've left a link below for you guys to start it. Okay. Even if you're not ready to fully go in business, start your business, let it age. That's exactly what shelf corporations are. So use 𝓔𝓏 to start your business. They literally will walk you through everything and it's easy. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So let's start with number one. Number one, in order for you to maintain consistency in your credit journey, you need to set up auto pay on all of the accounts that report to your credit report. So any sort of auto loan, when student loans do resume, you need to make sure those are set up on auto pay. And, that is a whole nother topic, and I have other videos about that, but just maintain, your student loans once they go into effect. Get onto the ramp up program, get on a payment plan, but make sure that you have every credit account that is reported to your credit report on auto pay for the minimum amount due. This means credit cards, any sort of installment loan that you have. Ensure that you have everything on auto pay for the minimum amount. Now, for the credit cards, you can always pay additional, and I would recommend that you pay your account balance to 0 or below 5%, 5 business days prior to the statement date. Business days do not include weekends or holidays. They are banking business days, Monday through Friday. So ensure that you give yourself enough time. So that way your balance does not report to the credit bureaus and it does not affect your credit utilization. So ensure that you have everything on auto pay. Now, bills that don't report to your credit bureau, like Comcast and your cell phone bill, a lot of these bills are only going to report to your credit if you have them on some sort of credit boost. You have not paid the bill and it's going to collections, things of that nature. But any sort of credit account, we want to make sure it's on auto pay. You need to make a spreadsheet of all of your credit accounts that are reported to your credit report, and make sure that you have documented the due date. Okay. Ensure that it's in your calendar. Make sure all of the payments have gone through. Now, if you are a few days late or something happens, a hiccup happens, you're not going to get a late payment until 30 days after the due date. So if you allow 31 days to pass before you correct the problem, you're going to get a 30-day late payment reported to your credit. And let me tell you something, those are by far the hardest thing to get corrected, especially on an open account if the bank does not provide you with a goodwill adjustment. And the banks do not have to provide you with a goodwill adjustment. You can ask based on what happened, if you've got a good story, if, it makes sense for the bank. But if you've been late multiple times and this is a pattern, chances are they might not approve your goodwill adjustment to correct that one late payment to update it as to paid as agreed. So that's why it is extremely important to your credit health for you to make sure that all of your credit obligations are set up on auto pay and paid on time every single month. I have literally seen clients who have got a late payment and it dropped their credit score over 100 points. It is the fastest way that you can ruin your credit. And, we work so hard to maintain our credit, and one late payment could really ruin it all. So that's why, being organized and consistent is a huge part of credit, and making sure that you have a spreadsheet of all of your bills. I have a credit card tracking log, and I'll leave the link below for that. And you could just do it in Microsoft Excel or the Google spreadsheet. But either way, document all of this that is on your report. And if you need to change around some due dates based on, when you get paid, you need to do that. You can contact the bank and you can move, a certain number of the due dates to the 1st of the month. And then you can move half of your bills to the 15th of the month. So it makes sense for you based on your pay periods, because you don't want to pay your car payment late every single month because it's due on the 5th, but you don't get paid till the 10th. Okay. So make sure that everything is set up according to, how your income works, how you're able to pay. If you need to communicate with the bank and maybe ask for some sort of adjustment, please do that, and here is another hack inside of that is you can, if you are struggling and you are going through a financial hardship, you can actually call your auto loan credit place. You can actually call the bank for your auto loan, whoever that may be. Say, for example, you have GM Financial for your auto loan. You can call them and say, hey, I am going through a financial hardship. I had some unexpected expenses come up recently, and I was wondering if I can request to place, this month's payment and next month's payment to the end of my loan balance. What this is called is deferring loan payments to the end of your loan. So you won't have to pay them. You won't get a late payment. They will be deferred to the end of your loan balance. So when you are dealing with some sort of financial hardship, those are some of the options that could be available to you, but you need to communicate with the bank directly and ask them if they would be able to approve it. Now, if you have a bunch of late payments in the past, they just might not approve it. But if you have a good track record with them, you've paid everything on time, you guys have a good relationship, then that's something that they might very well, take into consideration. Even if you do have a few hiccups with them, I would still call them and ask, because the worst thing that they can tell you is no, right? And I mean, that's just as bad as it gets. But I would highly recommend that you call them, let them know you're going through a situation. If you need to speak with a manager, speak with the manager. But, that is a hack in itself. A lot of people don't know that they can defer loan payments to the end of their loan term, but they would just need to call the bank and request it because they are going through a financial hardship. And that way it doesn't affect your credit in a negative manner. Okay. So number one, auto pay. Make sure all of your bills are set up, even if it's just the minimum amount. We cannot afford any late payments or hiccups. Okay. Number two is credit utilization. okay? And credit utilization is very important because it is so easy to get out of control, right? Especially in this time, the kids are going back to school, the holidays are coming up. It is very easy to allow your credit utilization to get haywire. And let's just talk about that for a minute. Now, if you go online and look up, what your credit utilization should be, everywhere will say 30% or less, right? You can have a 30% credit utilization. And what that means is you can use 30% of your available credit limit without it really affecting you. And that is the biggest crock of what I have ever heard in my life. And I'll kind of tell you why. When I was first starting credit and learning about credit, I accidentally allowed my credit utilization to go up to 27%. And it dropped my credit score like 60 or 70 points. It was heartbreaking, okay? And that really just verified my theory that we really shouldn't go over 15%. You can, max it at about 20%. But when you're first starting to build credit and you're still kind of new back, into credit, you want to keep your overall credit utilization below 15%. And you want to keep each individual credit card that you have. And I'm talking, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, only if it has a credit limit listed. Store credit cards like the Home Depot, Lowe's, any sort of store credit card, Macy's, Sam's Club, if it's just a Sam's Club card. Care Credit, that's another credit card that is considered, to be a revolving line of credit, or any sort of personal line of credit, because that is also a revolving line of credit that you would have. So credit utilization is meant for any revolving line of credit that you have. And a revolving line of credit are credit lines that can change on a monthly basis based on your spending habits. And the goal is to keep any credit line that you have that is revolving below a 10% of the available credit limit. So if you have a credit line for $10,000, 10% of that is $1,000. So, you can use more, but you don't want to allow that to report. And they're really just meant for, emergency purposes, because what we want to do is optimize our personal credit report so we can get business credit, because business credit comes a lot easier, it's higher amounts, and it doesn't affect us in such a negative manner like it does on the personal side, especially when it comes to utilization. Now, the payment history, of course, that would be very detrimental if you happen to get a late payment with either personal or business. So that's why on-time payments are so important. So auto pay, of course, is very important. But back to number 2 is, that credit utilization, in keeping that in check, making sure that all of your revolving lines of credit cards and lines of credit are below 10% of the available credit limit, and your overall credit utilization should remain under 15%, okay? Under 15% as a whole. Now, you do not need to keep a balance on all of your credit cards. No, you do not, okay? In fact, you should not even be using any sort of secured credit card unless your goal is to unsecure the card and grow your limits, okay? And even then, you need to be careful. The only secured credit cards that I really would recommend that someone use would be like Discover, Navy Federal, and some of the cards that actually will graduate to unsecured. You get your deposit back, and then they will raise the limit for you. But any sort of secured card that does not unsecure, it doesn't graduate, Open Sky, First Progress, a lot of these cards that we have to get it just to establish a little bit of credit, do not even use them. Usually they're for a very low limit, $200 to $500 usually. And, the first time that you use them, the credit utilization goes crazy. So just put them in a drawer. Do not close them. Keep them open. And when I say do not close them, that means don't close any credit account that you have that is revolving, because you're still getting positive payment history. Even if you have a credit card that you do not use, do not close it, because you are still getting history. You're still getting a positive payment reported to your credit, regardless if you don't owe them a balance. It's still reporting that you're in good standing. So that's why I say do not close the account. Now, some credit cards will close due to inactivity. Those are generally cards like store credit cards, because they want you to shop at their stores frequently. Now, if for some reason you have, open store cards that have been open forever, they're giving you great history, keep them open. Buy something every 6 months or so and then just pay it off. But if it's a secured card, you do not need to use that bad boy, especially if it's like with a Open Sky, Merrick, one of these just low budget, low limit, banks that are just not worth nothing, right? The best secured credit cards that you can get are with the credit unions. And in fact, I've left a link below for you guys to get my free credit blueprint. So that will give you some of the best secured credit cards that you can get. And I highly recommend following this blueprint. I literally just talked to a client. They were like, hey, this is the blueprint. Like, this is it. If people follow this, they will get it done. I literally just got a $50,000 line of credit by following your blueprint. And I was like, wow, that's powerful, right? But, keeping your credit utilization in check, keeping it low. If you are going after funding, you want to try to be at a 0%, because let me tell you guys a story. I applied, and this was years ago, and, I always ask a lot of questions when I get denied from banks so I can learn. And I applied for PenFed, and I already had a credit card with them, but I applied for another credit card and I was denied. And mind you, I had like a 750 credit score at that time. And I had been listening to some people online talk about, credit utilization and how to manage your credit cards. And I, was keeping a small balance on some of my credit cards. PenFed straight up told me they denied me because I had balances on too many credit cards. Regardless if they were low amount or not, they were still a balance. And that's why I was denied, is they simply said you have balances on too many credit cards. So that goes to show you that's a huge factor, not only for PenFed, but for other creditors as well. They don't want to see that you have a bunch of balances on your credit cards. They want to give credit to people who don't need it and look like they don't use their credit, to be honest with you, But let's just be honest here. If all of your credit cards are maxed out and a bank comes and looks at your credit, it looks like you're in financial distress. So, it's never a good idea to apply for credit cards when your credit utilization is over 30%. One way that you can try to reduce your credit utilization is by asking for a credit line increase from the bank. Oftentimes, if your bank has, an app, you can go to the app and ask for a credit line increase, and it's a soft pull. Or you can sometimes go to their website and it might be a soft pull. Sometimes it's a hard pull. So it just kind of depends on the bank. But if you are able to get a credit line increase with a soft pull, I highly recommend trying to increase the limits that you already have, because that will add more available credit, which will reduce your overall credit utilization and bring down that particular card's or account's credit utilization. So that's one way. And that's a whole nother hack inside of that hack, is asking for, the credit line increases. Another thing that you can do is you can ask the bank to move around your statement dates. So if for some reason your statement date falls on a date that, is not convenient for you, or your payment falls on a date that's not convenient for you, you can ask the banks, hey, would you mind if I can adjust my statement dates, or I can adjust my due dates? Because based on my payment schedule on, when I get paid, it doesn't align well. So I want to be able to, align these dates with, how my pay schedule works best for me. And oftentimes they can work with you and adjust, some things based on your needs. Because obviously, they want to make you happy. They want to get paid on time. And they, of course, make money when you spend their money because they're making interest. So keep those credit cards low, those lines of credit low. You do not need to keep a balance on all of your credit cards. In fact, like I said before, don't even keep balances on the secure cards unless you're trying to graduate them and build your relationship with that bank. Another tip here is, do not keep a balance on more than a few cards. So if you have, say, 6 credit cards, you do not need to keep a balance on more than 2. Okay, 3 is pushing it. You really need to have like your top 2 spender cards that you use, and just use 2 credit cards to, make your transactions with. And those 2 credit cards should be, either credit cards that you're looking to gain rewards from because you get points, or cards that you're trying to get the welcome bonus on, or maybe you have a 0% interest, whatever benefit that card has. We want to just have 2 spender cards out of our cards. If you have like 10 credit cards, then, I would still say like 2 to 3 that you want to keep a balance on at a time. Now, if you're like, okay, I'm done with these cards, I'm going to use this other card because it's got benefits for, the purchase or whatnot, then that's fine. But make sure that you zero out, your other cards before you start using another card. You really don't want to carry a balance on more than 2 to 3 cards. You really want to, spend and pay, spend, pay. And of course, make sure that you have paid 5 business days prior to the statement date. The statement date is the last day of your billing cycle. You can look on your statement and you'll see the billing cycle starts on one day and ends on, whatever day. Say if it ends on the 28th of every month, then by, the 23rd or the 22nd of the month, you got to stop spending, pay, and wait until that updates and reports to the credit bureau. As of your statement date, the next day you can start spending again. So you really have about like 22 days where you can, heavy spend and pay. But you got to make sure that, you're spending what you can actually pay. All right. And, put your basic, charges on your credit card. Anything that you were putting on your debit card, gas, groceries, PG&E. Well, PG&E is like electric from where I'm from. But, any sort of utility, if you can pay your rent with your credit card, anything that you can pay to earn rewards and just show your ability to be able to pay your obligations is wonderful. If you can pay your rent with a credit card and then put your cash to your credit card, so not only are you earning, rewards and you're earning bonuses through your credit card, but you're also showing that you can make larger purchases and pay that off. And if you pay your credit card before it revolves to the next month, then you don't pay interest on that card. So it's very much recommended you try to pay every bill that you possibly have with your credit card. If you can pay your auto payment with a credit card, do it. Any furniture, anything that you have that you can pay with a credit card, and then put your cash towards your credit card, that's going to help you build credit. So that is the goal, is putting your cash to your credit report and allow that to build credit. So let's move on to number 3. Number 3 is understanding what credit score you're actually looking at, because I talk to a lot of people every day and they're like, well, every time I look at my credit, it's a different number. Well, that's because you need to understand what scoring model you're looking at. So it'll tell you, it's usually in very small writing. It'll say, hey, your credit score is a 720 calculated by a Vantage 3.0 scoring model as of this date, based on the information from TransUnion or Experian or Equifax or whatever, right? Now, Credit Karma, for example, because that's a popular app that a lot of people use, it's free and you get TransUnion and Equifax. That is a Vantage 3.0 scoring system. Now, if you want to understand what your FICO scores are, because FICO is what the banks use, and it's simply just another scoring system. It's the same concept, but it's just a different algorithm. It's just a different scoring system. The FICO scoring system, is a brand basically, right? And the Vantage is a cheaper way for people to get their credit scores and for banks, not necessarily banks, but for people to obtain credit reports on other people. So for example, a lot of property managers will pull credit using a Vantage scoring system. Sometimes pre-approvals will come with Vantage, but banks and financial institutions do not use a Vantage scoring system. They are going to be using some sort of FICO scoring system. The most common FICO scores or FICO models are usually either a FICO 8 or a FICO 9. Navy Federal, they use a FICO 9. I know Mercedes-Benz, FICO 9. Now, FICO 10 is out, but banks and financial institutions haven't quite started using it yet. Some banks are still using FICO 5 or FICO 2. So there's a lot of different FICO variations, and it really just depends. You can always ask the bank what FICO scoring model that they're going to be pulling from, but to be honest, a lot of their representatives don't know. So if they do, I commend them, because I've talked to so many people over the phone when I'm applying for things, and you'd be surprised the information that they simply just don't know or just don't want to share. But either way, when you are looking at your credit score, look at, how this score is being calculated, and it'll tell you right there it's calculated with a Vantage or a FICO number. And then look at, what credit bureau this data is from. So it'll tell you it's either from TransUnion or Experian or Equifax. And then also look at when this data is as of, because sometimes credit reports are not updated. So I had a client one time and he was using Identity IQ, but his reports were like 4 months old. So the data that we were looking at was not up to date. So you definitely want to look at those 3 different contributing factors, which are, what scoring model this is being calculated by, what credit bureau this data is from, and what date this data is as of. Okay. Now, generally you can get your FICO credit scores with either My FICO, which is an app, and it's $39 a month. I'll leave a link below for you to get your FICO scores, and that's going to give you all of the different FICO variations, so I really like it. But there's also My Score IQ. My Score IQ is going to give you a FICO 8 score, and it's going to give you all 3 credit bureaus side by side. It's the same makers as Identity IQ, except for Identity IQ is a Vantage 3.0 scoring system, and My Score is a FICO 8. So if your goal is to go after funding, I would recommend that you look at your FICO credit scores, and we'll go through in some of these other hacks what you would need to do in order to fully optimize your credit score, so that way your credit score can be the highest that it can possibly go in the shortest amount of time by simply doing all of these hacks. And this brings us to hack number 4. Number 4 is you want to go through your credit report and literally highlight all of the charge-off accounts, collection accounts, and derogatory accounts. And sometimes I'll tell you, I have clients that come to me and they have Credit Karma and they go, well, it says 0 derogatory marks. And then I'll look at their credit report and I'll see a bunch of charge-offs, because oftentimes the charge-offs are not calculated into the derogatory marks when using Credit Karma. However, they are derogatory marks. So if you have old charge-offs or collections or any sort of account that has the word derogatory, you want to dispute that information from your credit report. So the easiest way for those of you that are hands-on is to simply print out your credit report, highlight the accounts, the account name, and the account number for any account that is listed as a derogatory collection or charge-off that is on your credit report. You need to look at some of the factors. When did this last report? If it is actively reporting, we need to either get this deleted or resolved, so it is no longer actively reporting as a charge-off, collection, or derogatory mark on your credit, because that's literally holding you back. And when banks see derogatory marks like old charge-offs, it is a red flag. So if you have gone through the dispute process, they were able to validate it's yours, you know that it's yours, sometimes, the best course of action is just to settle your old debts so we can make this go away. Not everything is just going to go away. If it was that easy, we can just, wave a magic wand and make all your old debts go away, then everyone would have perfect credit. But I always tell people, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. All those credit repair folks out there that advertise, they can get you results in X amount of time. If that was the case, everyone would have perfect credit. So, you have to ask yourself, is this realistic, right? Because the concept behind credit is it was designed to show our pattern as a consumer. And if our pattern shows that we get credit and then we don't pay for it, then we're not going to be a credible individual. So we need to show on paper that we are able to borrow and pay and pay on time at that. So make sure that you clean up all those charge-offs, collections, and derogatory marks. That is hack number 4. And I know it might sound simple, but believe me, sometimes people just don't see those accounts. So it's very important to go through your credit report with a fine-tooth comb. And if that means printing it out and literally grabbing a highlighter and, really getting hands-on with it, please, by all means, do so. Hack number 5, we want to build credit. Now, this is very important because you really want to build a solid credit profile for yourself on your personal credit. So that way you have enough credit that can help get you past that 700 mark. Because eventually, once you get to 700, you're going to want to get to 800, right? Sometimes it just takes time and you just have to show your ability to repay back debt as agreed. So there's nothing that can really fast track it. Of course, there's other things that we're going to be talking about in the hacks that can help you fast track it and help you optimize. But ultimately, it just takes time because creditors want to see that you have accounts that are in your name, that you are paying for, and that you have been paying for on time for the last 2 years. Okay, so that's really important. And when it comes to building credit, I have actually left a copy of my free credit blueprint in the description below. So this is my special gift for you guys. Make sure that you download it. Use the links inside of this ebook to start building credit. You can also get the links for credit monitoring inside of the ebook. So it's got pretty much everything and a lot of the data points that you're going to want to use in order to get you to that 700 plus mark, because there's not just a one-size-fits-all solution that I can give to every single person. If it was that easy, then like I said, everyone would just have perfect credit, but it's not built that way, okay? So we have to really learn how to play the game of credit, and we have to execute, okay? And building accounts in our name is called primary trade lines. We need to have primary trade lines. And what a primary trade line is a credit account that is in your name that you are responsible for paying on a monthly basis. And therefore, banks can count you in as being credible, responsible, and not a risk. Now, if a bank were to look at someone's credit report and all they have is a bunch of authorized user accounts, they really don't have any accounts that are in their name, then they might not be, a good candidate. They might consider you to be too risky because you don't have enough credit, right? So you really have to add enough available credit in your name. And the goal would be to get, anywhere from, if you really want to build a solid profile, you really need to have about 10 primary trade lines on your credit, about 10, and that includes installment loans and revolving lines of credit. So you want to have a nice, mixture, but, primarily it's going to be credit cards because you can keep those at a zero balance, or lines of credit. And then you want to have, a few installment loans, anywhere from 2 to 4 installment loans, 6+ credit cards. And credit cards are store cards as well. But I just don't recommend, if you're building credit, I don't recommend applying for store credit cards because generally they're very low limits. They're kind of a trap because as soon as you use them, your utilization goes sky high and your credit score drops. And, that's counterproductive of what we want. And there's really no major benefit to those cards, and they will close them on you if you don't, use them. I've seen a ton of store credit cards closed due to inactivity. So I would recommend sticking with, the Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover. Any sort of major credit card is going to be better. And then, of course, you do not need to use all of these cards. Use them for what they're worth, get the benefits, get the rewards. But again, don't keep a balance on a bunch of these cards because that is a sign of risk, right? And like I talked about before, if you are getting secured credit cards, there's really no need to use them because unless, of course, you're trying to graduate them. But in my ebook, I have a whole list of all of these secured credit cards that I recommend that you start with because they are much better secured credit cards than like Sky and, First Progress and, First Progress, whatever those, crappy little credit card companies are. And, sometimes we have to use them just to kind of get our foot in the door and use them as a stepping stone. But what we don't want to do is get them and then use them because generally these secured credit cards have a low credit limit. And as soon as we put a balance on there, again, our credit utilization is just haywire. So build up your credit profile nice and strong, anywhere from 2 to 4 installment loans. And again, installment loans are any sort of personal loan, car loan, student loan, rent, mortgage, account builders credit account builders like Self and Credit Strong on the installment side. Those are also considered installment loans. The pledge loan from Navy Federal, that's considered to be an installment loan. So any sort of, installment payment that you're making the same payment every single month until that account is paid in full is considered to be an installment loan. Okay. So that's why when you go to furniture stores and you finance furniture, you want to make sure that you're financing the furniture with a loan, an installment loan, not a actual store credit card, because if you get a loan, it does not affect your credit utilization. But if you get a store card and say you get a $3,500 store card to buy furniture and you spend $3,000, you're going to be in credit utilization hell because your card is way high as far as the utilization goes. But if you were to have that same debt on an installment loan, then it's not going to affect your credit at all, pretty much. I mean, it'll affect your debt to income for a bit, but it's really no big deal. So build credit, make sure that you've built out your credit report, So you look like a nice, strong candidate that is, reliable, responsible. There's no sign of risk. You pay your bills on time. We don't see a problem here. Okay, that's what the banks are going to say. You have to look good on paper. And if you need help structuring your credit report, of course, you can always schedule a coaching session or, connect more with me so that way we can talk about a blueprint that's going to be good for you. If you are interested in purchasing a single coaching session, I've left the link below so that way we can work on your goals in a single session. Now, before we get to hack number 6, I need you guys to do me a favor. Make sure that you have subscribed to the channel, hit that like button, and leave me a comment below, because your engagement with my videos helps me reach a wider audience. And guess what? I can help more people who are interested in fixing their credit. Okay, you don't need to pay anybody to fix your credit. You can totally do it yourself, but you need to be educated. Now, if you simply just don't have the time, you don't want to do it, it's not something that interests you, then of course you might need to invest to have some help, and I can definitely help you. So you can book a call below if you are interested in getting help. But this is something that you could totally do yourself as long as you put a plan together and execute. So let's get on to hack number 6. And that brings me to authorized user trade lines. Now, I did a masterclass recently about authorized user trade lines, and there is, a lot of misconception out there. So if you haven't watched that video, make sure to head over to my channel and watch that trade lines video. I'll also leave the link below for you guys to watch that video. But basically, authorized user trade lines are used to help enhance your credit profile. They are basically a slot on someone's credit account, and they do not belong to you, but they help because it adds payment history, it adds a higher limit, it adds more available credit, so it can reduce your overall credit utilization. But again, that doesn't make the problem go away. But you want to add trade lines as kind of the last step to your credit. That's kind of the final touch. That's the cherry on top, right? That's the ultimate pop. You've done everything that you can do organically. You've paid down your bills. You've got the collections removed. You've done everything you can possibly do. Now, the final step would be to add authorized user trade lines, because generally trade lines that are authorized users will give you anywhere from 2 to 5 point increase per year that they have been open. Now, we never know how many points they're actually going to give you, because every credit profile is totally different. And, what may have got one person like 100 points may not do that for the next person, because their credit profile is simply different. Now, for people that have a very thin credit profile, when you add a couple authorized user trade lines to your credit report, of course, you're going to get like a very high credit score. But the banks don't like that, because they think that it's synthetic. So you can actually get flagged if you have, a high credit score and all that's on your credit report is a bunch of authorized user trade lines. You really need to have primary trade lines, which is what, we just talked about in hack number 5, is building, primary trade lines. Those are trade lines that are in your name. Authorized user trade lines, those are trade lines that other people are responsible for. So if you have friends, family, mom, dad, aunt, grandma, grandpa that have credit cards, that have a perfect payment history, and have a credit utilization below 15%, you can have them add you as an authorized user, and then you will inherit that account information on your credit report. You do not need a card. They will get a card in the mail with your name on it. They will need to activate it, and they can literally cut it up. Okay, you will not have access to their account or anything, so there's no risk to anybody. If you are interested in purchasing authorized user trade lines because you don't have any family members or friends that, will do this or have that type of, account, you can purchase a slot on someone else's trade line. We've left a list below for you guys to get our recent trade lines list so you can add trade lines. But again, that's the very last step. So don't book a call with me to talk about trade lines when you're not even there yet, right? You might need credit repair. And, oftentimes we have a deal where if you purchase 2 trade lines, we'll help you with your credit for free. So if that's something you're interested in, book a call and we can get started, but be payment ready. Okay. Don't book a call with me if you are not ready to move forward, because my time is very valuable. And, if you just have questions, you can email me, support@creditcoachpros.com. I'll leave my email address below. Now, here's a couple questions that I want to answer about trade lines. Now, is there a hard pull for authorized user trade lines? No, there is no hard credit pull when you get authorized user trade lines added to your credit report. It's a very simple process, but make sure to watch my entire trade lines video because I break that down. But that's something that's not on there is, are you going to get a credit pull from adding an authorized user trade line? And of course, the answer is no. We talked about the difference between, the primary trade lines, which are step 5. That's adding accounts that are in your name that you're responsible for paying for. And then the authorized user trade lines, that's what we're talking about now. So there's 2 different types of trade lines, okay? And you're going to need both. Of course, you need more primary than you do authorized user, but, just to get you kick-started, if, you're ready for an authorized user, then you can purchase it. But you still need to build credit in your name. These are temporary. They last for 3 months. They are used to help enhance your credit profile. So if you're applying for something and you would like to have a higher credit score, the trade lines that are authorized user trade lines, they can help get you there, but you still have work that you have to do on your end. And then another question was, how many trade lines are needed for a 700 credit score? That is a great question. And we kind of went over that a little bit before is, to optimize your credit profile, you really need between 10 and 20 trade lines on your credit report in order to fully optimize it. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but, basically and these are some of the hacks that we're going to be talking about, but you really need to be able to show your ability to repay back debt as agreed. And you can get a lot of credit builder accounts that are not going to cost you a hard inquiry. And we'll get to some of those in a little bit, but I have a lot of great credit builder accounts that would be considered a primary account in the credit builder guide. I would not recommend purchasing primary trade lines because a lot of them don't post. They're very expensive. It's just a waste of money. You can literally spend the money that you would have spent on a primary trade line and put it into, a primary trade line of your own, like, secured loan. And we'll get to that in just a little bit. But as far as the trade lines go, you could easily add 2 authorized user trade lines to your credit report and get a 700 credit score if you don't have any derogatories on your credit. No collections, no charge-offs, anything like that. I've seen it happen a number of times. But again, it's all going to be dependent on your data points that are on your credit report and kind of like what's going to be best fit for you. So unfortunately, there's no, black and white answer. There's no one size fits all when it comes to credit. Unfortunately, there is a lot of gray area. So it would just be a matter of, following the data points that are outlined in these hacks and then, executing on that, of course. So that brings us to number 7, hack number 7. Hack number 7 is adding a pledge loan to your credit. Now, a pledge loan can be hack number 7 If you want to increase your credit score, you're definitely going to want to do some sort of pledge loan on your credit. Now, a pledge loan can be acquired with Navy Federal, but I also did 2 videos that have 10 other banks that offer a quote unquote pledge loan. A pledge loan is simply a secured loan that you're going to use your own money to secure a loan. Okay, so what you need to do is have this money in your savings account. They will take the bank. You call the bank, say, hey, I want to do a pledge loan or a secured loan with you guys. I have, $5,000 in my savings account and I want to use it towards a pledge loan or a secured loan, whatever that bank calls that particular loan. Navy Federal, they call it a pledge loan. Other banks might just call it a secured loan, or a certificate, some sort. But this is the certificate that actually reports to the credit bureaus. There is no hard inquiry to acquire this loan. So again, we're getting credit building products that are not going to require a hard inquiry. And a lot of those credit builder products can be found under Hack 5, where I'm giving you guys the blueprint, which has a ton of primary trade lines in there. You can use Boom Pay, you can use Rent Reporters, use 𝓕𝓏𝓏, Self, all those places, no hard credit check. Now, you will get a hard credit check if you apply for a credit card. Of course, that's going to be a hard pull, but these are other credit builder loans, and you need anywhere from 2 to 4 installment loans reporting on your credit report. So the pledge loan is going to report as an installment loan. And with Navy Federal, the lowest amount of a pledge loan that you can do is $250. And you can go up to, 100,000 or more. So if you do have a large amount of cash and you want to put comparable credit onto your credit report, a pledge loan is a great way to do it. Now, here's another hack that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to the pledge loan. Now, when it comes to the pledge loan, you can actually add a co-borrower to the pledge loan. So now not only you will get credit for this, but your co-borrower will also receive credit for this account. So you can actually add, kind of the same concept as an authorized user, but you can add another applicant to the pledge loan. So say, for example, if you want to help your son or your husband or your wife or whoever with their credit, and you're like, hey, I'm going to do a pledge loan. I'm going to do a pledge loan, and I can add you as my co-signer. So not only is it going to help me build credit, but it's also going to help you build credit. And, there's places out there and people out there who offer, a slot on secured loans to help you get what's called comparable credit to your credit profile, because you have to think about, the concept of credit, right? And I always talk about the concept, but look at this concept. If a bank is looking at your credit report and the highest credit limit that you have on the credit card side is $500, what makes you think they're going to give you a $50,000 credit card? You don't have comparable credit. They might give you $1,000, they might give you $1,500. So you want to add what's called comparable credit to your credit report. Larger limits. Now, the reason why I like 𝓕𝓏𝓏 is because we are using their larger limits to add comparable credit to our credit report. Same concept if you were to buy an auto. If the highest auto loan that you have had on your credit report is, say, $25,000, what makes you think you're just going to go walk in and get approved for a $100,000 auto loan? You don't have comparable credit on your credit report. So what we are trying to do here is add comparable credit to how we live our life, right? Now, if you are one of those people that has a lot of cash, by all means, put your cash on your credit, right? Because credit is going to take one of two things. It's either going to take money, time, or both, okay? because there's nothing fast about credit unless you can buy your way through it. But even still, the banks want to see your ability to pay back debt as agreed. That's what they want to see. They want to see your track record. It's okay to sprinkle in a few authorized users here and there just to help enhance your credit score, but you are still going to need your own account. So when it comes to, the 10 to 20 trade lines that ultimately we want to have on our credit profile, there's a method to the madness. You don't just add 10 to 20 right away. Over a few years, you acquire these. And we'll get to another hack where I talk about how to build up your credit, but ultimately the goal is 10 to 20. Not, right away, but eventually you will get there. Okay, it's building. But as far as the pledge loan goes, you can certainly add a co-borrower to the pledge loan, so that way you can help out somebody else. And there are people out there that offer large installment loans that are secured, like through Navy Federal, like a pledge loan, and they can add you as a co-borrower. But of course, they are very pricey. So if you are interested in doing that, you can let me know. I have a couple people that I've worked with in the past that do that. But if you have the cash to do it yourself, then go ahead and just do it yourself for yourself, and add a co-borrower that you want to help with payments. Make sure it's set up on auto pay. And, as far as the terms are going, there is an interest rate, and you would need to select the amount of months that you want to, be in this thing for. Sometimes there's minimums when you're talking about, 100,000, they make you, select a minimum certificate term. So there's different terms, but if you're just doing like, a normal pledge loan, anywhere from 250, 5,000, 10,000, 15, 25, something like that, then you can just select, a term that's going to be best fit for you. I would select anywhere from 6 months to 36 months, to be honest with you, because you ultimately just want to show your ability to repay back debt as agreed. So if you can just set it up on auto pay and just let it roll. I mean, a lot of people talk about paying it off early and paying 80% of it down. You don't need to do all of that, okay? Let the bank get a little bit of interest off you. That's what they want. Make them happy. You have to understand, in a relationship, there's a two-way street. Don't try to cheat the system, because our goal is to pay on time. Show them every month I'm responsible. I make my payment on time. So you're building trust. So set up that pledge loan, get it set up on auto pay, and just let it roll. If you want to pay more towards it, you can, but I don't think it's really necessary. I think that you should just set it up on auto pay. And if you don't want to pay it for that long, do a 6-month term, do a 12-month term, and just pay those payments on time for the duration that you have selected. Okay. So that's number 7. You want to make sure to do pledge loans or secured loans on your credit. You can try to get, higher limits so you can have comparable installment credit, which will help you get, auto loans and other higher limit installment loans. And, you can also add a co-borrower. You can do multiple pledge loans at the same time. So if you wanted to do a pledge loan with Navy Federal, you can do that. And then I have those videos that show 10 other banks that have the same type of, concept over there as far as the pledge loans go. So you can build a couple pledge loans with them, and you can have multiple pledge loans with Navy Federal. I have opened up 2 in the past. My first one was for $3,500 and my second one was for $25,000. After I finished my second pledge loan with Navy Federal, that's when I got my $25,000 credit card. So and that was my 3rd card that I got with them. And my first one was the American Express. I only got like $500 with that one, so it wasn't a very good limit. And then I did a pledge loan, and I got the flagship card. And that one I got approved, I think around $22K or something like that. I forgot, but it was around 20 something thousand that I got approved for. And over time, I was able to raise the limits Right now it's about 33K. And, that's pretty good for like, the last 2 years, I would say. And then the cash rewards card was my third card, and that one started off at a $25,000 approval. So that one is the card that I would recommend people go after first, is that green cash reward card. But you want to do the pledge loan first. Okay, do the pledge loan first for the highest possible dollar amount that you can do. Okay, the money is still going to be available to you in your account. It's just going to be, you need to have the money in your savings account when you're going to do the loan, and they'll take a loan against it and put that same money into your checking account. But now you just have to pay back the loan balance. And once that loan is paid in full, you'll still have the money back minus any interest. So it can be confusing, but don't overthink it. The money is still there. It's still yours. We're just using our cash to put on our credit report and build credit and build a relationship with the bank. So 7, pledge loan. Make sure that you do that. Okay. And again, you don't need to have Navy Federal. There are 10 other banks that offer that pledge loan concept hack. Okay. Let's move on to hack number 8. And again, guys, if you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure that you have subscribed on YouTube at Credit Coach Nicole Scott. Leave me a thumbs up, smash that like button. Let me know if you have found value in this episode. And also leave me a comment. Let me know, hey, I've got a question, or hey, thanks for the video, because your engagement with the video helps us reach a wider audience. So I greatly appreciate your engagement with the video. And most importantly, I appreciate you for taking the time to learn about credit so you can execute and you can make it happen, because it is not easy, my friend. I have been there myself before, and it is super frustrating. And nowadays, the credit bureaus, they, send all these stall tactic letters to even, discourage us even more. But we just have to keep on applying pressure, being consistent and persistent. There's nothing fast about credit, but as long as you are consistent, it will happen. Okay. It might happen faster for others, but your time is coming. Okay. Your time is coming. Just best believe all the results that you see online, that's going to be you one day. You just have to stick with it. Okay. Number 8, we're going to be talking about inquiries. So inquiries, that counts for about 10% of your credit. And if you have a bunch of inquiries on your credit that are not associated with any sort of open account, there's really no need to have those bad boys listed. So if you went to go shop for a car and they ran your credit a whole bunch of times, obviously that happens a lot, but you never got a car with them. We need to dispute all of those inquiries. And there is, a shopping period where, you have like a 2-week shopping period to shop for whatever it is, like a vehicle or a home. And all of the additional inquiries won't affect your credit score, which is true. However, it still affects your credit profile, because some banks are inquiry sensitive. So when you go and apply for credit, they will deny you because you have too many inquiries on your credit report, meaning they think that you've been seeking credit a whole bunch of times, and now they don't want to approve you because you've got too many inquiries on your credit. So what you would need to do is simply call the credit bureaus and dispute anywhere from 2 to 3 inquiries per phone call. You would need to speak with the fraud department. So you're going to need to call and speak with someone who can transfer you over to the fraud department. Once you are transferred, you need to confirm, hey, am I in the fraud department? Because oftentimes you will not end up in the correct department. So confirm that you are in fact speaking with someone in the fraud department before you go into your story. Once you have confirmed that you are speaking with someone from the fraud department, you can advise them that you recently reviewed your credit report under their app, and you noticed you had a few unauthorized credit inquiries listed on your credit report. You're going to need to provide them with the inquiry name and the inquiry date. Again, the inquiry name and the inquiry date. Have this information ready to rock and roll. And again, only dispute 2 to 3 inquiries per phone call. So you might need to span this out if you have a bunch of inquiries on your credit, because at the end of the day, it's already hard enough trying to get these reps to do this for you over the phone. But if you come with like 10 inquiries, they're going to be like, no, you're going to just need to send in a letter or whatever. So call over the phone. That's the fastest way. You can also dispute them online directly with the credit bureau and just let them know that this inquiry is unauthorized. I prefer to call over the phone. Worst case scenario, you can do a dispute letter. You can use ChatGPT to generate a dispute letter for you. So that's a whole nother hack, is using ChatGPT to, basically create your entire dispute letter to the credit bureaus and to creditors. Because a lot of times the reason why people don't do dispute letters is because they don't know how to write it. They don't know how to word it. They don't know what to say. Well, perfect. Go ahead and head over. Just go to, your internet browser and type in ChatGPT. I'll leave a link below. You can create a free account and you can literally give it a prompt to write you a dispute letter for unauthorized credit inquiries, and it'll write you a dispute letter. And you can even go a step further and give it another prompt to say, hey, write me a dispute letter from an angry consumer to the credit bureaus in regard to unauthorized inquiries on my credit report that need to be deleted. Okay, just keep it super simple and it'll write a realistic letter like it's coming from you, from a pissed off customer. And I love it. Like, I use this all the time. Now, I don't use it like word for word. Sometimes I'll regenerate it or just use sections of it, because you want to keep it simple. You don't need to, do so much. Your letter should just be 1 page. But on your dispute letters, you need to make sure, if it's for inquiries, you have included the inquiry name and the inquiry date. If it is for an account, you would need to include the account name and the account number. You don't need the full account number. You just need whatever account number is listed on your credit report, because that's the only identifier that you have. So you can literally just copy and paste right from your credit report. So if you need to get a copy of your credit reports, I will leave a link below for my Score IQ. That is the easiest report to use for those of you that are beginners. My FICO is more or less for like more advanced folks that really understand how to look at things and what to look for. The My Score IQ is great for those that are intermediate, kind of beginners, mid-level, because it's simple. It's all 3 credit bureaus side by side. It's a FICO 8. It has everything that you're going to need account-wise, inquiry-wise. So it's very easy to follow. And that's why I like it. So sign up below, use the links, and again, if you have questions or you feel like you need a little bit more support, you can always book a coaching session with me. I have a coaching session package that includes my personal credit repair course, my business credit course, and the Turo rental car course. So all 3 courses are included with 6 one-on-one coaching sessions. And my courses, we're always adding new stuff to them because things are often changing. But the reason why I encourage the one-on-one coaching is because every person is at a different place. Every person has different goals. In some ways, might not be applicable to you. So if, your goal is to build credit to get business credit cards, then of course we're going to need to tackle building your business credit a little bit different. You don't need a bunch of net vendor accounts, because what you really need is just some established credit reports with the business. You don't need anything crazy. but you need a strong personal credit report. Like, yeah, you still need a couple trade lines reported to 𝓔𝓏𝓪, SBFE, possibly Equifax. Banks do not use Dun & Bradstreet. Banks and financial institutions do not use Dun & Bradstreet. Those Dun & Bradstreet is for suppliers, vendors, property management company, service providers, things like that. Banks, financial institutions, they're not going to be pulling from Dun & Bradstreet, but that's a whole nother ball game. But I just wanted to kind of, let you guys know about, extra information as it applies. So of course, number 8, clean up all of those old inquiries that are not associated with any account on your credit report. If you do have inquiries from accounts that you got approved with, leave them. Okay, you do not want to dispute inquiries that you actually have accounts with. It's not necessary. Even if you have 8 inquiries, but they're all associated with, accounts. No, okay, so what? Big deal. You got approved for all of them. So no big deal, because in actuality, credit inquiries are going to remain on your credit report for up to 25 months. They will be on there for 24 months, 2 years, and they take about 30 days to fall off organically. So approximately 25 months, right? But they really only hold value on your credit report for about 12 months. So that kind of brings us to our next hack, which is hack number 9. And I call this concept the build, break, build concept. And this is a concept that I developed for not only myself, but for my clients as well, because you need to understand you can't just open up 10 credit accounts right away. You need to build, you need to take a break, and you need to build again. So it's a process, right? Because we got to let it have some time to kind of air out and, show your ability to be able to repay back debt as agreed and manage these accounts properly. So when you are in the process of building credit, the best concept that you can use is the build, break, build. And, when you're taking a break, your break should be anywhere from 3 months to 6 months, even 12 months. It just depends on kind of like what your goals are. But if you're in the beginning stages of building credit and you need to build a lot of credit, then I would break for 3 to 6 months before, you go after your next round of, credit. So I would, initially apply for anywhere 2 to 3 accounts with each credit bureau. So I would select 3, credit cards or, credit products that I want to apply for with banks that I know are going to pull from only TransUnion, and then get that list together, and then get another list together of banks that are only going to pull from 𝓔𝓏𝓪, right? Only going to pull from Equifax. And then you want to do your funding sequence, which is basically, you focus on one credit bureau at a time, and you can lock the other 2 credit bureaus that you're not going to be using to apply with to ensure that, they only look at, say, 𝓔𝓏𝓪, right? So if you're going to be applying for some 𝓔𝓏𝓪 only banks, we know that American Express is an 𝓔𝓏𝓪 bank. They generally are going to pull from only 𝓔𝓏𝓪. So you can lock Equifax and TransUnion while you're going through this funding process. You can also apply with Chase because Chase should be one of the first places that you apply with, since they are, very strict when it comes to new accounts. They have that 524 rule where they don't want you to have opened more than 5 accounts in the last 24 months. Now, those are some of the first banks that I would apply with. If you have a decent score, it's just a thin profile, you want to focus on Chase. You can try American Express. Sometimes it's easier to get on the business side versus the personal, but those are 2 banks that pull from 𝓔𝓏𝓪. And then, of course, just lock the other 2 bureaus and use that same concept when you're using the other bureaus. Understand, when you're locking and unlocking your credit files, you should give it at least 3 business days to fully populate, because you don't want to have any hiccups. Now, once you've, applied for the first round using just Experian, you could, apply for the other two bureaus the same night if you wanted to. But basically what you're doing is pulling up 3 browser window tabs on your computer, and you want to do this actually on a computer when you're applying for credit products with banks. Like if you're applying with like Credit Strong and some of the places that don't require a hard inquiry, then that's no big deal. You can apply for those, whenever you want. But, some of those type of accounts, as far as like Credit Strong, Rent Reporters, Boom Pay, if you do Self, if you do Extra, there's a bunch of those accounts inside of my credit blueprint guide. And so visit the links below and you can get your free copy of that blueprint, because it has a ton of places that you can build credit with, and it breaks down, a lot more information. But I'm telling you guys, these 10 hacks, these are literally what I have done for myself. This is exactly what I give to my clients as far as the blueprint. And again, they're not in any particular order, except for I would say like the last thing that you want to do is, add the authorized user trade lines. That's kind of like the final step. That's just, the polish on everything. Okay. And that's to help enhance everything. Now, as far as the build, break, build, do what's going to work best for you, but, build credit, anywhere from 2 to 3 accounts per bureau. So, 6 to 9 accounts you'd be applying for. And then you want to take a break 3 to 6 months. If you got approved for like 6 credit cards, I would take a break for like 6 to 12 months, because you don't really need too much more than that so fast, because, you also have to consider your credit history. Every time you add a new account to your credit profile, it makes your history go down. I mean, you can add authorized user trade lines if your history drops, which makes your credit score drop. That'll help bring your credit score back up. So when you are doing the build, break, build, your credit score might go down once you get a bunch of new credit. But over time, as you start paying it on time, your credit score will go back up. And then if need be, you can add another trade line right before you're about to start, applying for some more credit and getting back into that, build phase. So again, build credit, take a break. The break can be anywhere from 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months, just kind of depending on, where you're at with everything. And then you want to build again. And it might be a good idea to add an additional trade line before you apply, because it helps, with higher limits. If you want to get a $25,000 credit card, you need to, again, have some sort of comparable credit. If the highest credit limit that you have on your personal credit is only $1,000, I mean, good God, it's going to be, tough for you to get a $25,000 credit card. So that's why I always tell people, add some authorized user trade lines, because that will help you get a higher limit credit card. Okay. And that's what our goal is, getting high limit credit cards in our name. So that way we can get higher limit credit cards in our business and hide our debt. Still pay it on time, but it's not going to affect us so much. So if we need like home improvements done, or or financing a bunch of stuff, put that over in the business name. Keep your personal credit squeaky clean with these top 10 hacks, so that way you're always ready to be able to leverage your credit. Okay, so build, break, build, that's number 9. And the final hack, number 10, is personal information. Oh my goodness. Personal information. Okay, so this might seem like, oh my God. So I waited around for 10 damn steps for you to tell me personal information. But listen here, there's more to it than that. So with personal information, again, go on your credit report, look and see how they have your name spelled. Make sure you only have one name. Okay, because oftentimes they have a bunch of different names because they spell it wrong and they have it listed wrong. One name, one address, only have one correct address. So if they have old, outdated addresses, or they have addresses of your family members, whatever the case may be, get them to correct all of that stuff. You can call them over the phone to have this updated. Sometimes they might want you to send it in writing. You can also request to update all of your information directly through the app. So you can go directly to Experian, directly to TransUnion, directly to Equifax, and you can request to update your personal information directly from the disputes on their website. Now, if you update your personal information from the Experian app, like under your, like if you sign up for the Experian app and you go over to your account details, nothing to do with the dispute center, but your actual account address, account name, all that stuff for Experian, as far as like, you know, when you signed up for Experian, what information you put in to open up that account, you want to make sure that address under the settings is your correct name and your correct address verbatim, okay? Because that's going to be reported to your credit report with Experian. So, of course, you want to make sure that you have the correct personal information with the credit bureaus, okay? If you see any other names or addresses that are inaccurate, you need to get them cleaned up off of your credit report. If they are tied to an old account or an open account, you need to update that account's address and information so that way it's no longer attached to an account with that address, because our goal is to only have one name and one address, okay? Now, here is a bonus. Make sure, this is super, super important, especially for those of you that have had credit repair in the past. Make sure you have printed out your credit report. You can use My Score IQ, but you want to look for the consumer statement, okay? Consumer statement. This is a huge reason why people are getting declined for credit, is because they've gone through credit repair and now there is a consumer statement listed on their credit report. And oftentimes, if you've gone through credit repair and they have disputed anything on your credit, it might say that, you know, you're a victim of fraud or this or that. And it's not something that we requested. It's just something that they will do automatically. So if they do happen to ask you if you want to put a consumer statement on your credit profile when you call and like dispute over the phone, absolutely not. In fact, please remove any and all consumer statements that are listed on my credit report. And if there is not a consumer statement listed, then you don't have to worry about it. But sometimes people won't see it. So that's why I say, you know, print out your credit report with My Score IQ and go through it with a fine-tooth comb, because you want to make sure you do not have a consumer statement listed on your credit report, because less is better, okay? And oftentimes, if there is a consumer statement listed, it says that you've been a victim of identity theft and that the bank would need to call you to verify that you authorized that account to be opened. So if they can't call you, or if there's no telephone number associated, you're automatically going to get denied. And this could lead to automatic denials anyways, because they're not going to be able to approve your application, you know, instantly like they would for other people. Now, I have seen some people get approved even though they have had a consumer statement listed, but you know, it can lead to issues. So to avoid any issues and to avoid the bank having to call you and verify and write you things in the mail, you'd prefer to just get an instant approval like we all would, right? And the reason why you're not is because there's a consumer statement listed on your credit report. So you need to call the credit bureau, ask them to remove the consumer statement. Now, since this does have to do with, you know, a big part of, you know, identity theft, oftentimes they will request that you send that to them in writing. So if you have a consumer statement, or if you have a copy of your credit report, you can send a copy of your credit report to each credit bureau and circle the consumer statement that they have listed on file for you, or you can just copy what they have listed on file for you and say, you have the following statement listed on my credit report and I demand you delete it. And, you can use ChatGPT to generate, the structure for your letter and say, hey, write me a dispute letter to the credit bureaus to delete the consumer statement. Very easy. And you can even do a letter to delete the consumer statement and update your personal information all in one letter. So you can ensure that, hey, I should only have one name and address listed, which is my only correct name. I should only have one correct address listed, which is my only correct address. And here's proof, right? And with those letters, you want to send a copy of your photo ID, driver's license or state ID. Okay, it could be a passport as well. You want to send a copy of your social security card because this has to do with identity theft and they need to verify that you are in fact who you say you are. And you should send 2 proofs of address. So if you have a pay stub, if you have a utility bill, an electric bill, bank statement, any sort of statement that has your, correct name and address on it, you can send them a copy of that statement. You can just black out, any personal identifiers other than account numbers or things like that. But I like to send in, one form that's kind of like from a job. So if you have any sort of tax documents or a pay stub, or a 1099, that's a good proof of address. And then another good proof of address is a utility bill from an electric company, water company, garbage company, anything that comes from, a government or, an agency. If you don't, then you can use a bank statement or some other form of a billing statement. But the best forms are those that are issued by, more reputable companies, just so you can show that, hey, these companies were able to verify me, especially like a job. If you have a pay stub, that's the best route to go. And make sure that your pay stub has the correct address on there, because some people forget to update their address when they moved with their employer. So you definitely want to make sure that everything is updated. Now, if you have recently moved, sometimes what happens is, the credit bureaus don't have your new address on file. And this happens a lot with Equifax. They'll completely lock your file as if you don't even exist. And it's crazy, but I've seen it happen so many times. And that's simply because they can't verify you. There's a new address populating. They're not sure if it's you or not. So they just lock everything as if you don't even have a credit score. Okay. That happened to me when I moved, and it literally took me 2 months to get it corrected. So you have to write them a letter, because if you call them over the phone, they act like they don't know what the hell you're talking about. It's super frustrating, but they're like, no, we don't have your credit file locked. It's not locked per se, but it is frozen until you can verify your billing address or your, correct address. So you just need to send them a letter and say, hey, my credit profile is, I'm not able to receive my credit profile. It appears to be locked or, unconfirmed because you don't have the correct address on file for me. So please unlock my credit reports so I'm able to, pull my credit, and creditors are able to pull my credit. You can let them know, hey, I just applied for a home loan and I was not able to acquire my credit report because, your data is locked. Okay. And it's due to the fact that you don't have the correct address and personal information on file for me. So something's not matching up. Therefore, they're not going to be able to produce your credit reports. So it's very important that you have, the correct name, the correct address, the consumer statement completely deleted. If you have old employers on your credit report that you want removed, you can always ask for them to do that, because again, the more relevant this information is, the better, because when you are putting in credit applications, you want all of this information to remain the same, right? Because that's how this information gets onto your credit. You've applied for some type of credit application, and that information got transpired to the credit bureau. So now they have that information on file for you. So if you've applied for something with a different address or whatever, sometimes that will report to your credit. And once something is reported to your credit, it just stays there until you actually say, hey, this isn't right, I want this deleted. And that's just the way it goes. They don't look at your credit periodically to make sure that everything is going well for you. Okay, you have to do that. You have to take the initiative to say, hey, I have reviewed my credit, I have found errors, and I demand that you correct these errors. Okay, keep it simple. Use technology, use whatever tools that you can, calling them over the phone. If you are having a hard time, call back and speak to somebody else. But, sometimes we have to multitask. So when we're in the car, utilize your time wisely, right? If you've got a bunch of things to do, sometimes we're going to have to turn the music off, make some phone calls, take care of business, learn. Okay, you can be listening to the Credit Concept podcast while you're driving, so you can learn and start thinking about those action items. And what you need to do is just get you a simple little notepad, binder, whatever you want to call it. You just need a solid notepad. And I recommend the ones that are, the binder. You can get the 3-ring binder ones that are bound together for like a couple bucks, or you can just get like a simple, notepad that's, pretty durable. And every day, write down your thoughts. Okay. Have a to-do list, and you can have, your master to-do list. You can have your daily to-do list, but write down all of your thoughts, because if you know that you need to call the credit bureaus to get some inquiries deleted, you need to write that down, because if we don't write things down, we forget about them. They're not important. Our mind starts getting piled up and backlogged and overloaded. And when our mind starts getting overloaded, guess what? It shuts down. And then when the system shuts down, sometimes everything is not saved. So that's why it's so important to just go get a simple notepad and a pen. Make sure you carry it around with you. And when you have thoughts about something or you think about something, write it down. Okay, write it down. I don't care how small or big it is, just write it down. Start documenting everything so that way you can start executing. Okay. The goal is to get anywhere from 1 to 3 things done per day. 1 to 3 things done per day. Because some things, one item, might have multiple action steps that you need to do in order to actually be able to say, well, that's done, right? Like calling the credit bureaus to dispute inquiries. You might call them. They might say, hey, send us a letter. We don't do this over the phone, which is a crock of what. But if that's what they're asking for, send it to them, send them a letter in writing, and then call and follow back up with them in about 2 weeks and say, hey, I sent you the letter. I still don't see any changes. I demand that you delete this because right now you're violating my rights as a consumer. Okay. So if you guys do have questions or we would like to connect more, make sure to visit the links in the description. I've left links for our credit course, the credit repair course. I've left links for the business credit course. If you are interested in getting the one-on-one coaching, that does include all of the courses plus 6 one-on-one coaching sessions. Each coaching session is 90 minutes. And if you are interested in, seeing how I can help you, feel free to book a free introductory call and we can, see if it's going to be a good fit for both of us. So until next time, guys, I truly appreciate you sticking around for this entire episode of the Credit Concept Podcast. Again, this was the top 10 hacks to get a 700 plus credit score. Make sure that you have shared this with your friends, your family, shared it on social media, because this is some powerful information. And even though it might seem like common sense, sometimes it's not so common. So let's go ahead and share this with our friends and family so we can make sure that everyone is educated, because in this day and age, we are in a recession. Credit is very important. So we should all strive for a 750 credit score. So that way, in the bank's eyes and on paper, we look extremely legit and we can literally get whatever it is that we want. And sometimes, it means that, we might have to consolidate some debt and take out some personal loans and pay off some credit card debt. And, that's probably the best thing that you guys could do, because the personal loans are not going to affect your credit utilization. They will affect your debt to income ratio when it comes to, buying a home or buying a car, or getting some other form of a loan. But ultimately, the goal is to spend less and make more. So if you are interested in starting a side hustle, you want to start a credit repair business, you want to start a coaching business, you want to start a business credit business, tax business, whatever the case may be, I coach a lot of business owners who are in the process of starting credit repair business, tax, trade line business, all sorts of different business models, because I'm telling you guys right now, you're going to need a coach. You're going to need a mentor. You're going to need someone that can help you fast track the process, because there's so many different ways to make money when it comes to, this world that we live in, especially with it being an online world. You just have to figure out what's going to be best for you and execute, take action. Okay. So thank you so much for sticking around. Make sure to watch all of the Credit Concept podcast episodes coming up next.